Welcome back, everyone. We are now part 2. We're continuing the Maamar Vayomer Yehonasan Chodesh. We are learning this Maamar Lilo Nishmas at Rosh Hashiva, Rav Michal Akiva Gershon, Rav Mafal Menachem Nachum. Okay, this Maamar focuses on the Maila, the greatness of our Avodah, our Bittul. The fact that we are absent, our sense of self is absent, that brings about vinifkadata, that brings about, that reminds Hashem, and as we talked about extensively last time, that brings down a level of the Eibishter that Kaviyachol needs to be reminded, meaning is totally beyond, removed, and is totally, so to speak, forgets about this world. It's a darg of the Eibishter, it's a level of Hashem which is beyond, and our absence of self somehow is able to reach that. And we've been talking about that. We've translated that into David. David is the one who's going to be absent in the actual story. He's not going to show up on Erev Rosh Chodesh, on Rosh Chodesh itself, I'm sorry. We've talked about Yitzchak, as opposed to Avram. Yitzchak symbolizes the Avodah, our efforts, digging the wells, as we all know in Chassidus. And we are now continuing along. We are now at Ois Vav, and we will, God willing, conclude the Maamar today. And we are really trying to understand how it is that something that we do can have an effect on a part of Hashem that is infinite beyond and completely removed from anything to do with me. How can what I do have an impact on something which is totally beyond? So that's what we're talking about. And let us begin now with Ois Vav. We're talking about the greatness of us doing something as opposed to something coming down initiated from above. And by the way, when we talked about this, I'll mention it last time. In general, many times we talk about the fact that if we do something, the response is relative to what we do. But when Hashem does it without us doing it, it comes from a greater source. That's true. We're focusing now on the level that we're able to trigger, which we've focused a little bit last time. But the point here is as follows: when the Eibishter comes on his own, when he just gives with chesed chinam, it's chitzonius, which means it doesn't take hold, it doesn't have an impact, it doesn't take effect, and even where it's coming from, it's something coming from what we call chitzonius. However, when I work for something, then it's more real, and it's going to trigger something more real. And we're talking about the greatness of what I do. Now, the reason that what I do, the reason that what we do, the reason that our Avodah is so much greater than hashba, a flow that comes without us doing it, there are two reasons that is expressed. There are two reasons for that. Number one, the fact that I work for it and the fact that I am the one who's causing it to happen means that it's coming from a pnimiusdika place within me, and that's going to trigger a pnimiusdika place of the Eibishter. After all, if I'm working from it, so it's something which is a part of me, and therefore, as we mentioned last time, Isha Mazras Tchila, when it's coming from below, the woman being the metaphor for the Mikabel, us, the recipients, us on this earth, the ones who are working, then Yelad Zachar, it's going to give birth to something incredible. As I said in the parentheses, we spoke earlier, and we said that when I do something that's greater, because what I do ultimately brings to a Zachar. Now, obviously, that means I'm doing something which is triggering, and it's bringing this incredible Zachar. That's the effect of what I'm doing. So we've talked about what's great about what I'm doing, that I'm able to cause effect, and I'm able to affect something incredible. But how does that effect happen? The fact that I'm able to trigger that because it comes from the pnimius, it comes from the pnimius, it comes from something in an inner part of the Eibishter, because it's coming from an inner part of me. Why am I able to trigger the inner part of the Eibishter? Because it comes from the inner part of me. So that's one reason, one way in which you see the fact that what I do is greater is because I am able, through my Avodah, through my Pnimius, to trigger the Pnimius, to trigger this incredible light, and to bring a Zachar. That's true. That's the effect of what I do. But then there is number two. The fact that I am doing it. The fact, in other words, there's something incredible about what I am doing. Obviously, what I'm doing has an effect. You see the greatness of what I'm doing by virtue of the fact that what I'm doing can reach this incredible light. That's true. But that's the way you see it. That doesn't mean that's not what that's. We'll see over here. What I'm doing, essentially, is that's what's really great. The fact that what I'm doing triggers something, that's wonderful. Also, the fact is, when I do Aveda, that in and of itself, obviously it's going to, for instance, the Mochor, which is given here, maybe we'll look at some of the footnotes over here, but you'll tell me that when you are in a state of Mesiras Nefesh, when you're, let's say, under tremendous pressure, what it does is you go all out, and it's megala, and it reveals tremendous potency and tremendous strength. The example, perhaps given, let's say, if I speak about something, the fact that I talk it over, I speak an idea, I talk dibur. It's interesting. It's an amazing thing, and it happens as I'm delivering this class right now. As I'm talking about it, I actually understand the material better. Why is that? Because my words, although words seemingly are something secondary, I have the idea in my head before I deliver today's class. But now I'm actually delivering it and delivering it verbally. The fact that I'm delivering it verbally, the fact that I'm actually expressing it in Dibur has an incredible strength. You know what the incredible strength of Dibur is? That it's able to get me to understand what I thought I understood. Even I understand it even better now. Yeah, that's where you see. That's how you see that Dibur is great. But that's the effect of it. But Dibur is great not because of what it does. Dibur is great is because Dibur itself, as we learn in Chassidus, is actually rooted very, very deeply within my nefesh. Within my nefesh, that's where Dibur is rooted. That's the reason. Me talking to you right now, that's what's great. Obviously, what I'm doing, it triggers something. So again, the Aveda, what I'm doing, the halal, the mulmata, the fact that my bittul, what I'm doing, it reaches something greater than if it would come down without me doing it. But you want to know what's really great about what I'm doing? That what I'm doing is connected to the very essence of Hashem. Therefore, when it comes to Mashiach, it's going to come. We're not going to say, you know what's great about Yitzchak? The Yitzchak was able to trigger something great. No, what's great about Yitzchak is Yitzchak. What's great about Yitzchak is the fact that we're doing it. And as sort of is implicit, I believe, implicit in the Maamar is because that's what the Eibishter really wants. That's what Bechiras Ha'atzmos, that's the essence of Hashem wants me to do something. And therefore, whether or not it has an impact, it doesn't have an impact, the fact that I'm doing it, that in and of itself connects to the essence of the Eibishter. And obviously, as he continues here, we've sort of said this right now. The next paragraph. The fact is, the fact that what I do triggers something incredible, and the fact that what I do is in and of itself the ultimate purpose, are obviously connected to each other. What do you mean? The fact that what I do is able to trigger something great. Why is that? It's because what I'm doing is great. So the example I gave before, why is it that Dibur can elicit some great level that wasn't there before Dibur? It's because Dibur itself is great. The greatness of Dibur is not that it does that. It's because Dibur is great, therefore it's able to do that. But I don't know the greatness of Dibur. You know how I know about the greatness of Dibur? By its effect. They're saying, I don't know about the greatness of my Avodah. So nowadays, if you're going to ask me, what's great about your Avodah? What's great your Avodah is look, your Avodah, because it's done on a Pnimis, is able to trigger the Pnimis of the Eibishter, this incredibly high level. That's true. But what's going to happen, but that's a symptom. That's not the essence of it. But ultimately, when we're going to see things for what they really are, with Mashiach, then I'm going to see that it is my halah, my avodah, my bittul itself. That's the greatness. That has the potency in it. Of course, I don't see the potency until I see what it can do. And this you have to understand. Remember what we said in Eishei. We said in Eishei that there's Yitzchak ben Avram, there's Avram ben Helas Yitzchak. There's Yitzchak ben Avram, which means Yitzchak is Yitzchak. Yitzchak is the avodah. Remember me. How does Yitzchak do anything? And we explained that in the last place. I can only do something. I have to have something that starts my engine. After all, I'm a Yitzchak. I'm a nobody. I'm a human being. I'm a goof. I'm a body. How does the body? The body has to have a starter. Oh, the starter is the neshama. So the neshama starts the body. Fine. That's Yitzchak ben Avram. Yitzchak is started by Avram. Then there is also, we said last time, there's also Avram Hoyledes Yitzchak, which means Avram, that starter, the neshama, the starter, that's Avram, the neshama, that gives the guf, that gives the Yitzchak, that gives the avodah, that gives it the ability to do its incredible magic. So there's the fact that Avram can start Yitzchak's engine and get Yitzchak going, and there's the fact that Avram can actually give Yitzchak the ability to give birth to further offspring. That, remember, the Havodah elicits tremendous strength. Which is greater? So if you were there last week, you said, oh, well, look what Avram gives Yitzchak the ability to actually be able to do so much. Listen, the fact that Avram gives Yitzchak the ability to do so much, that's not the greatest thing about Yitzchak. The greatest thing, as we just said about Yitzchak, is not that he could do so much. It's that Yitzchak himself is great. Therefore, he says, the fact that Yitzchak is triggered by Avram is actually greater than the fact that Avram can trigger Yitzchak to have children, that Avram can trigger Yitzchak to be ma'ir some great thing. Why? The Elin Inyan Hoyledes Yitzchak, we said last time, if Avram gives the ability for Yitzchak to have children, the fact that Yitzchak is going to be able to trigger something. What does he trigger? He triggers that Zachar. That's the greatness of Yitzchak. What's the greatness of Yitzchak? The Yitzchak can give birth to a Zachar. The Yitzchak, the Maya Avodah, can give birth to something. Yeah, but that's not the greatest thing about Yitzchak. You know what the greatest thing about Yitzchak is? The Inyan Yitzchak ben Avram, who Milas Halatzma. The fact that Avram gives birth to Yitzchak. That's great. Stop right there. Avram gives birth to Yitzchak. That's why, actually, in the pasuk, look at it. That's why when we talk about the greatness of Yitzchak, it's about Yitzchak. The word Yitzchak comes first. Yitzchak is Ben Avram. Of course, Yitzchak needs Avram. You always need the guf on its own, me on our own. I'm a piece of clay. I need something to start me. But the focus here is, and the key operative word is Yitzchak. Avram Hayledet Yitzchak, Nemar Avram Yitzchak. But when we're talking about Avram Hayledet Yitzchak, then you're putting Avram before Yitzchak. Then it's really about Avram, because Avram is giving Yitzchak the ability to create another great, incredible Avram. The Neshama is giving the guf an ability to draw something down. Fine. Because when we're talking about Avram giving the power of Haylada, the power of creating an offspring to Yitzchak, then we're all focusing on Avram. Or we Yitzchak ben Avram, but when it talks about Yitzchak being the son of Avram, and that's why the focus is on Yitzchak. Yitzchak is ben Avram, but it's about Yitzchak. The Yitzchak ben Avram. Fine. Yitzchak is the Ikar. Yitzchak has to be a ben Avram. Okay. Fine. So this is what Oisvav is. It's a very, very fundamental Ois, because this is really nearing to the climax of the Maamar, which is really, again, such a fundamental Maamar. It's not maybe so straightforward, but it really is so fundamental. And here we go, Eizai. Now, this is really just putting this in other terms. We're really, it's from what I understand, this is not changing the ideas. We're putting it in other terms over here. But let's just look a little bit. There's two aras over here, but just look at ara 32 for a second over here. The sikha that came along with this Farengen, interestingly, we have 2 dates, Yud Kislev and Yud Tes Kislev. Which comes first, Yud or Yud Tes? Well, it depends. It depends. Are we talking about in chronological in the years? Well, obviously, Yud Tes Kislev, the Alter Rebbe's Gula, came before Yud Kislev, the Middle Rebbe's Gula. But if you talk about the dates of the calendar, Yud comes before Yud Tes. Well, both are true. There's an Avram and there's a Yitzchak over here. We know that the Alter Rebbe is Avram and the Middle Rebbe is Yitzchak. So which comes first? So here we go. And we're here on Erev Rosh Chodesh and Rosh Chodesh, which have the energies for both Yud and Yud Tes Kislev. In the order, you have 2 orders. You have Shnei Fanim, you have B'Shanim, you have in years. Agul Yud Tes Kislev, B'Shnas Tavkuf Nun Tes, Hilaf Nei Agul Yud Kislev, B'Shnas Tavkuf Pei Zayin, which happened one before the other, right? 1898, because it was Kislev before 1926. Again, they were both in Kislev. But if you talk about the actual year, Yud comes before Yud Tes. So what? As we know, So Admar Azakin v'Amram Tzah Yehem al derech Avram Yitzchak Chegdima Yid Yud Kislev Yud Tes Kislev Hu al derech Yitzchak v'Aben Avram. So now what do we do? Avram and Yitzchak Alter Rebbe Mittel Rebbe. So now Yud comes before Yud Tes. Why? Because Yud Kislev, that's Yitzchak is Ben Avram. Who's the first one? The Mittel Rebbe, Yitzchak. Yitzchak needs to come from Ben Avram, but it's about Yitzchak. But then you have Akdima Yud Tes Kislev Yud Kislev al derech Avram has Yitzchak. But if you talk about the actual years, Yud Tes Kislev is first. That's Avram giving the ability for Yitzchak. Anyway, just an interesting order. Let's go back into the thing. Also with Talmud and Maisa, you can look at Ara 31, which is also fairly interesting. Oizayin. There's the David Yehonasan. And the same thing, really, just we're going to change the words from Avram to Yitzchak, David to Yehonasan, and Zah to Malchus instead of Halah and Amshachah. We'll talk about Zah and Malchus, which essentially are the same things, and we're not going to explain that here in this class. Right now, it's about Malchus. So what's it all about? We've been talking the Maamar Vayomer. It's almost like the other Rebbe saying is you focus on the wrong part of the sentence. We've been saying your absence, your absence is gonna, what is it gonna do? It's gonna trigger vinifkadata. It's gonna trigger the big remembrance. That's true. That's because ultimately for us, we only see what we see. And what we see is that Avodah triggers great things, that the Bidl triggers great things, that David's absence triggers great things. That's true. And then there's a mile of Yipakat Mashvecha, but there's the absence itself. Forget about the fact that because of David's absence, that Shaul's going to remember him. The absence itself. That also brings to a vinifkadata, but hold on to what that vinifkadata is. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Second, sorry. Yeah, sorry. So what's the purpose of Rosh Chodesh? To get to Rosh Chodesh, right? Well, also love it, but then there's something else. There's a mile in Erev Rosh Chodesh itself. The absence of the moon is not just a means to an end. The Halam al is not just a means to a Hamshacha. The Yitzchak is not just a means to drawing great things down. The Yipakim Meshavech is not just a means to the Vinifkadita. There's the actual Levana itself, the absence of the moon itself. The moon itself, it's not just, hey, because of that, you're gonna get a reflection from the sun. No, because of that, you, Mr. Moon, are doing a good job. You, Malchus, are doing a good job. In fact, the truth is that ultimately you're going to realize that the Yipakin Meishavecha, your absence, you, Mr. Moon, you, Mr. Levana, you, Mr. Malchus, you, Mr. Halah, that essentially, and we'll talk about that as we conclude the Maamar, is actually greater than anything that you can accomplish, because ultimately Malchus is greater than Zah. Ultimately, our work itself, irrespective of the fact that our work brings to great results, it does bring great results. But our Aveda itself, that's where the Bechiras HaAtzmos is. That's what the Eibusha wants. He wants that in and of itself. So ultimately, it's not just that what you're doing is great. What you're doing is greater than what anything will happen. If you look, the Haftarah concludes, and the Haftarah concludes, you know the story where they're creating this litmus test to see if Shaul will notice. Ultimately, they cry on each other's shoulders, and they realize, our father-in-law, our father wants to go after you, David. And they're crying. Yehonasan cries, but David cries more. David higdil. David outdoes Yehonasan. The absence of David ultimately outdoes the Yehonasan, as we explained last time. Yehonasan is the Yud, Hey, and the Vav, Nasan, the Zah, the fact that there's going to be a Hamshacha, that ultimately David outweighs. Next paragraph. Shetchilas aliyah Malchus, he shehi mesbatelas u'metzusa menasen nekudas tachas hayesoid shebachlolos u'nyipakom hashevech. Ultimately, Malchus, his job is to have halah, to have the absence of self, to be able to diminish his identity in front of all the spheres, all the greatness in front of it, which we call Yesod, which we call Zah. It is by virtue of the fact that Malchus itself is insignificant, loses its sense of self. That losing of its sense of self allows it to the necessary conditions for it to be ultimately expressed its true greatness. The fact is that nowadays the greatness of Erev Rosh Chodesh is, hey, you can get to Rosh Chodesh. That's a springboard to get to Rosh Chodesh. But ultimately, the absence itself, You're going to see the greatness of the absence. You're going to see the greatness of the void, the greatness of the bittul, the greatness of the avodah itself. Now, dear friends, we will answer the question. The question of the Maamar is, how can anything we do, or our energy, or our focus, how can that connect or affect the essence of Hashem? How can that affect the ultimate essence of Hashem, which is far removed and beyond anything to do with us? Why? Here's the answer in this paragraph. Now we're going to sort of change the terminology again. Instead of using the word Zah in Malchus, or instead of the word learning Halav Amshacha, we're going to use the word Eibishter and Yidden. But again, the concepts are the same. And again, to study this Maamar in depth, we're just doing it in 2 classes. There's some nuances here, but we have the Eibishter and we have the Yidden. Okay, there's the sun and there's the moon. There's Zah in Malchus, Halav Amshacha, there's the Eibishter and Yidden. Madrushim, B'tzchil Samayim Madrushim, Yipakan Meshebecha David Levana, who Bitul Yisrael, Vayidei Zeh Nasa V'Nefkadata, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Nizker, Vayidei Zeh Nasa V'Nefkadata, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Nizker, Kaviyecha Aleim U'Pei Kadesa. Our Yisrael, our absence of self, ultimately brings to this greatness. Here's the answer. Comes to the end of the paragraph. Moishal Yidei, Yipakan Meshebecha Da Malchus, Misgal Yonu V'Shirish Da Malchus Atzma. By virtue of the fact that Malchus loses its identity, by the fact that Malchus is on Erev Chodesh, it's able through its bittul. What happens? Not just that it elicits a great response. That in and of itself reveals what it's all about. You are the ultimate purpose of creation. In fact, you are the very reason why the entire cosmos exists. It's because of you, Malchus, because of the Yud Nid Shenim. It's not about the fact that what you do is going to bring a great ray from the sun. No. In fact, ultimately, you're where it's all at. That's the same thing of true us. What does it mean? When we have this bittul, what we are revealing is, what we're revealing is, essentially, our identity is the Eibishter. I'll try explaining this with some words. I'll try to give some words to explain this. You can work very hard. You can be committed. You can be dedicated because it's the right thing to do. That's what I'm supposed to do, and I'm fully into it. You can even use the words maybe Mesiras Nefesh. But ultimately, it's all somehow connected to what you're doing. And hold on for a second. I know this sounds like we always say. But then there is, this is who I am. A mother doesn't take care of their children because they have to do it, because they have Mesiras Nefesh to do it. Oh, you're such Mesiras Nefesh. I woke up with a baby in the middle of the night. That's who I am. That's my Metzias. That's my Metzias. When we say bittul over here, we're talking about what we're doing is you're revealing the fact that, you know who I am? You know my name? My name is Eibishter. This is who I am. There was a bechira of atzmutz in me. The Eibishter was beicher my avodah. And I'm doing this avodah. It's not a bittul mitzad, an avodah of bittul. It's not that I'm doing something. It's who I am. This is me. This is my identity. And when I'm doing that, what I'm essentially doing is I'm revealing the fact that in my Mochor, in my Chodesh, in the very essence of the Eibishter, the Eibishter was beicher in me. That's what the Eibishter, that means ultimately, that's what the Eibishter is. That means within the Eibishter himself is Am Yisrael, is Yidden. That's who I am. And when I do that down here, it's not that we said, how can what I do trigger? It's not, I'm not triggering anything. I'm not doing, it's not even the Maila. We were saying, it's not the Maila that what I do, look, what I do is so incredible. It's true. It's true. What you do is incredible. But don't focus on what you do is incredible. Why is what you do incredible? Because this is the very purpose of creation. This is the very purpose of why everything exists. So it's when I act that way, then I am able to be megal of the fact that the Eibishter, this is what he wants. So therefore, it's touching the very essence of the Eibishter. Not only is it touching the Eibishter, the very essence of the Eibishter, it's actually fulfilling the Eibishter's tainug. I'm actually giving something to the Eibishter in a certain way. I mean, the words he says here are, the fact is we can become, so to speak, mashpia kaviyachal the Eibishter is word kaviyachal. We can become, if you will, the mashpia for the Eibishter. Why? Because that's the way the Eibishter created. He created it such that in the etzem of the Eibishter has tremendous time and tremendous hana when I have that avodah. And that's why my absence can do something incredible. Why? The question of the whole Maamar was, but we're talking about reminding Hashem, triggering it. I shouldn't use the word trigger anymore, because that was the question. Affecting or having some impact or somehow touching, or we can't even use a word, because any word we're going to use is going to be wrong. But that is negeya in a level of the Eibishter where nothing is negeya. That's a stira minei ubei. If nothing is negeya there, if nothing makes a difference, then why can anything I do? Nothing I do will make a difference. You're right. The reason what you're doing makes a difference is not because it makes a difference. Why? The very fact that if I can affect this, the fact, if you're talking about because it's what I'm doing, that's what I'm doing it because I have to do it, because I want to do it, because I'm supposed to do it, because I'm having a citizen never should do it. But if it's a bittul b'ipaka, it's the complete absence of self. You ask a mother, why are they taking a child? I'm a mother. That's who I am. This is what I am. I Jew, you Jew, I tefillin, you tefillin. That's who I am. Then what are we magala? If I have that attitude, then I'm magala the fact that me and the Eibishter are kula chad, are one. Chad mamish. That I'm one. And not only am I one, but actually, I can actually fulfill the very purpose for which the Eibishter wanted this whole oneness to begin. And then before we'll conclude the Maamar. Istes. We explained, but so I'm bringing something new. That's, I guess the question over here is, the whole point is, and I said we'll talk about this soon, you're going to be remembered. I thought it's not about the impact. I thought it's just about what I'm doing itself as kul echad. When we're talking about v'nefkadta, you'll be remembered. Let me explain to what you'll remember. It says that. We're talking about you'll be remembered, which means the Geula will come. Mochor Chodesh, tomorrow means Geula. Tomorrow means Mashiach. We're talking about something which never existed before. There's going to be a totally new order. First of all, Yisrael. We ourselves, we are going to be completely rejuvenated. But we, a new Torah will come into this world. And these two together, this new Yidden, the new Torah, that will be create a new reality. And that pasuk in Yeshaya that talks about the Geula, a new order, a new world order. And therefore your seed, your children, and your name will become revitalized. What's going to be? It's not that, now is when we're going to appreciate what you did. Everything else is going to be nothing. There's going to be a new world order. And now we're going to appreciate what it is that you did. Because we brought it about. How do we brought it about? Satskin, the Eibush is going to just play and enjoy and revel and have just ultimate tainug and pleasure in Yisrael. This, you were the guys. You fulfilled my yearning, my longing, my desire. Because ultimately, all I wanted was a dira b'tachtonim, and you fulfilled that. You were the mashpia, so to speak. That remains la'ad olol me'elamim. That's the chiddush. That's the greatness, and that's what we mean when we say. Brings to v'nefkadta. Yipakeh b'shavecha means the absence of self, the total absence of self. Completely not focusing on anything, not focusing on the fact that what I can do can trigger anything, not focusing on the maila of my avodah, not focusing on the maila of malchus, not focusing on the fact that malchus. No, just it's who I am. It's it's the essence of the Eibush. That's why it's hard to even put it in words. Yehonatsan, let us conclude. Shadiber ben Yana by talking about this, am I learning about this together? As we're now ready for the renewal, the ultimate renewal of the moon. This will usher in speedily David Malka Mashiach David Malka Yisrael Chai v'Kayim Yavi v'Galenu v'Yelchenu Kamis Ratzenu v'Gula Amitas v'Shlem v'Chol Zeh ba'Ofen Demiyad. That happens instantaneously. Al Derech Meil Havanashim B'Rega B'Kememra. It happens momentarily. Miyad Hinigolim. May this come speedily in our days. Hashakech. Thank you very much for joining us, and I hope this gives us tremendous oomph, energy to be able to appreciate and to be able to understand. I didn't even say the mile of Yidden, but the achdus, the oneness, the, as in modern Dar Hashmini terminology, the intimacy that we have with the Eibusher. Ashakech, Hatzlacha, and thank you very much.